Good morning. My name is Michael Perelman, and I'm here to talk to you today about sex coaching and how the sexual tipping point model helps optimize the diagnosis and treatment of sexual dysfunction generally, but specifically today, premature ejaculation. Here's my disclosures. And we're not going forward. So anyway, the agenda, I'm going to talk about the sexual tipping point model and just illustrate it to you briefly. Talk about how to take a sex status so you know how to take a quick sexual history. And then importantly, what's the most critical issue for you to identify for your patient with PE? Now, the sexual tipping point model depicts both the mental and physical elements of sexual function and dysfunction. Now, why is that important? Because as you've heard, sexual response, including IELT, is always both mental and physical. PE is an endpoint that's not merely based on medical, biological factors. Let me break this down for you. So I've got two pairs of interconnected containers on balance pans that represent excitation and inhibition. They hold all known and unknown mental and physical factors. So the circles in the containers represent all the billions of factors regulating sexual response and range from polymorphisms that might predispose to faster or slower IELT to the sociocultural factors that might regulate the frequency of intercourse for an observant couple. So it's a variable control model, not just a dual control model, with factors that are either dialed up or dialed down. Each factor's dimmer switch has variable polarity and valence. So each factor's setting varies as to its degree of hot or not, sex positive or sex negative. Some factors may be neutral, and some we haven't discovered yet. So the sexual tipping point is displayed on a bell-shaped scale, and it depicts the dynamic combination of all these factors at any moment in time. So what's the first takeaway here? PE always has multiple biomedical, psychosocial, and cultural etiological factors. Second, a man's ejaculatory tipping point is determined by the net sum of those factors. Third, identifying key etiological factors will determine initial treatment targets. And fourth, explaining this model and treatment targets to the patient can inspire hope, which is also very necessary. So how do you identify these factors? I agree with the AUA guidelines. The number one recommendation was the diagnosis of PE is based on sexual history alone. So how do you get that history? I would say take a sex status, which is not a questionnaire or test. It's a flexible, focused, history-taking method that's going to uncover all the key issues. So how do you do that? First, you want to ask specific questions. Listen, clarify. What do you mean by PE? Don't just presume that you know. What do you think is causing the problem? You want to ask the patient. A lot of these people are smart. They've got it figured out. You'd need to rule out ED, as was discussed earlier, because a lot of patients are confused. Now, for me, the best single question you can ask, and this is true really for any sexual dysfunction, tell me about your last sexual experience. It gives me a video picture in my mind that helps me identify immediate and remote causes. Now, you're not going to be worried about too many of these deeper causes. Your focus is going to be on predisposing and maintaining causes. It's sex coaching, not deep psychotherapy. But most importantly, it's the most important diagnostic issue to clarify is whether he can differentiate premonitory sensation from emission and ejection. It's the final PE pathway. Men with PE typically lack skill in identifying premonitory sensations or adequately managing their body's response to those premonitory sensations. These are progressively escalating sensations of sexual arousal during coitus. Now, this is regardless of other predisposing factors, whether it's genetic serotonin thresholds, nerve transmission rates, or psychosocial cultural variables. So what are three common errors that you'll hear your patients telling you? Some cannot discern premonitory sensations. It's just too fast for their awareness. Like all of a sudden, I just felt like it was going to come. And for me, this is where I need your help the most, as do all the other sex therapists, because we really need to use a medication, a spray, a pill, a cream, for you to help slow down the process so we actually can become aware of increased muscle tension, heart rate increasing, testicular elevation, etc. Now, some other guys recognize these sensations, but they just hope they won't come yet. Second, some confuse premonitory sensation and the emission phase. He's thinking, uh-oh, I'm gonna come, when it's really, shoot, I'm coming. He's confusing strong premonitory sensations with the emission stage of his ejaculation. For him, it's too late to stop or slow down. He has no choice point. Subsequently, ejection and orgasm take place 2 to 4 seconds later, no matter what he does. Trying to hold back, a lot of guys will kind of squeeze and try and hold back. It only results in an unsatisfactory, partially retarded ejaculation. So is it important to incorporate assessment of his capacity to discern the difference between premonitory sensation and emission? Is this necessary? And the answer is yes. Why? AUA guidelines. Patients usually relapse when withdrawn from medical treatment. Current approaches, whether pills, topical creams, sprays, all emphasize symptomatic improvement without considering long-term learning, relationship issues, or relapse with discontinuation. Medical treatment of PE is limited by PE's multidimensional etiology. Treating PE is more than just improving IELT. ISSM definitions, as we've just heard, also emphasize control and distress. So what do you do? Just quickly. First, premature articulation. First visit, following your dosing and medical treatment instructions after you've done an assessment, you want to discern again whether or not he knows this two-stage physiology. Teach the difference between premonitory sensation, emission, and ejection. If he's unaware of premonitory sensation during intercourse, assess if he's able to delay with manual stimulation or oral stimulation. That's whether by manual by himself or by his partner. If so, how does he do it? And if he's not doing the same thing during intercourse, how might he? Ask him. Instruct him how he must adjust his body and mind when experiencing premonitory sensation, how to kind of dial it down, and if he's a little worried about his erection, how to dial it back up. You can suggest he practice with stop-start and slow, fast, slow masturbation, just to start learning what it feels like. Encourage foreplay and focusing on sensations, not avoiding them. So many of these guys avoid sensation. They really distress their partners, going don't touch me. So you want to encourage foreplay, but paying attention. And as needed, suggest discussion points to have with his partner. He shouldn't be yelling stop in a very mechanical way. Instead, say something like, hey, just hold it a second. It really feels good being inside you. This is great. And that gave him that 2-second break that helps dial it down a little bit. So on follow-up, reassess by taking a sex status. What went well? What were the difficulties? Offer suggestions for each of the obstacles. There's an opportunity here to wean him, and this is when I said better risk-benefit balance. There's an opportunity to either reduce the medication or wean him from it altogether as he learns the skill and it has increased confidence. That is part of relapse prevention, and yet if he's with a new partner or he's under more stress, maybe he goes back and uses the medication, just like you'd repair a headache. What about referral? Now, frequently, you're going to be able to do this sex coaching. That's why I thought it was so important, and thank the AUA for having me here. But identifying psychosocial factors doesn't require you to treat them. In terms of when to refer, if the patient requests it, we all love to work together with you, or when you decide your own sex coaching is insufficient. This is just a table for that. Finish. And anyway, thank you all for listening, and for those who are interested, there's additional videos and related publications on mapedfund.org, which is the foundation, which this is all drawn from. So thank you all very much.